Welcome to Fandom Power.
Hey, welcome back to Fandom Power presents The Fandalorian. My name is Wes, and once again I'm joined here in studio with my producer, editor, Andy.
Hello.
And all the way out in Halifax, our dearest friend of the show, Hank McClocklin.
Good morning, Alderaan.
Good morning, gentlemen. Wow, we're in for, we've only got one more to go, and I got to be honest, I may shed a little tear last night when the closing credits drew down.
Like, yeah, man, the penultimate episode.
I know. So this week we're, I can't believe it, we're all the way up to chapter 15. It's chapter 15. It's called The Believer. This one's written and directed by Rick Famuyiwa, who we saw last season. Also directed the episode with Bill Burr in the last season. So it's an interesting choice that he's come back to do this one because Bill Burr's Mix Mayfeld is a very prominent character in this episode. The runtime is 38 minutes, 27 seconds with the recap, or 37 minutes without. And our synopsis this week is, to move against the Empire, the Mandalorian needs the help of an old enemy. All right, gentlemen, as we do every week, let's go around the table here and get everybody's initial thoughts. How about you, Andy? What do you got?
Liked it. Again, not enough for me. Give me more. More show. I want more. I don't want it to end at 8.
That is a consistent fan criticism across the board. I think anything you look at online in terms of message boards and sort of fan feedback all say the same thing. Just give me more. So I definitely empathize with you there. Anything else?
I agree, but at the same time, if they gave us 24 episodes, it might only last a year. So I'll take 3 years or 5 years in chunks, just to sort of keep it going. I'm sure they could seriously do a 24 episode season, but the budget would be insane.
Yeah.
Would be insane. I mean, I know they have unlimited money.
And
I got to say, this episode rubbed me the wrong way in a few ways. There's
Sure.
a few little. It took me several watches to sort of come around to some ideas, and yeah, we'll get into it as they come up organically. But it took me several watches to relax into a few things.
Yeah, I think we're on the same. We're in the same camp there, Hank. Because initially, like, this is the first episode of the season where I've actually, looked at the title and didn't have any real clarity on it by the end of the episode, at least on my first time around. So I found that a little problematic, like Believer, and so it did require a really subsequent watch for me to wrap my head around the concept of, like, who was the believer, what was the belief, was there multiple believers, and I did eventually come around to it.
This has been a debate in my apartment till up to about an hour.
Oh wow!
And I've been back and forth with, like, because I had a lot of trouble with it.
Yeah, I thought maybe
all the other ones hit me like lightning.
Yeah, exactly. Same with me. But I thought maybe this was an intentional choice in the part of the writing and also the directing. Outside of that, I think there's some great development pieces surrounding Din Djarin in terms of, like, what I've called, like, the dad syndrome and how far he'll go.
Yeah.
And wow, I really, really did not want to like the Mayfeld character based on his season 1 appearance because he was such a throwaway asshole. But for me, he really came around in this episode, and I actually related to a lot of the things he was saying. There's the whole, basically it's the war is hell speech, and having been to war, yes. I can really empathize with that. So yes. As much as I did not want to like him, by the end of the episode, I did. And even Kara has a little, she's got a little bit of a development piece, just in terms of her, she's very hard-stanced against the Empire when we meet her, and that extends to ex-Imperials. But by the end of this episode, we actually see how far she's willing to go and what she's willing to do and not do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think that actually, as we successive watches, I got in that explains more about the the title, and I think that the title kind of covers almost every character.
I was going that way
the
too. There's probably a moment for everybody. I won't say everybody, but because I don't think there was a moment for Fennec or for Boba.
Not really.
But for Din Djarin, Mayfeld, Cara Dune, and even Gideon. Gideon, they all have.
Gideon too, yes, yeah.
They all have a little moment where it's like, they've been challenged on some level where maybe what they thought or what they believed in may have changed.
And also, most importantly, in terms of what you just said, the viewer is the believer.
Oh, for sure we are.
Right. So so I think that's the biggest thing is that this might be almost meta.
I feel like this whole episode is a giant metaphor, and I say it a couple times in my notes. Unfortunately, listener, you may have to hear me repeat myself a couple times. Last thing I want to say under my initial thoughts is this episode to me. I know we talked about it last episode as being like sort of the Hamburger Hill episode. This episode it's the Vietnam movie episode in some ways. That middle act is very much a Vietnam movie.
Exactly why I had my intro like that this morning.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Anything else anybody wants to throw out before we get into the breakdown?
Punch it, Chewie.
All right, let's do it. Let's get to it. All right, our opening shot is of the Carthon chop fields, and hey, we were right. It's a labor camp. It's very similar to the scrap yards, the shipbreaking yards on Baraka that we've seen in Jedi Fallen Order that Cal Kestis is actually working at. So, is that a little foreshadowing? I don't know.
It could be.
On first glance, to me, it looked like it was mostly Imperial hardware, but there is actually a Rebel U-wing in there, so I guess it's just leftover scrap from the war that just needs to be broken down. And we get
like 90% TIE fighter pods.
That's what I thought too. It certainly looked that way. Yeah. But we get another version. I don't think it's exactly the same.
No, it's the land version.
It was another version of the mobile loading gantry.
Yeah,
and we see a couple of those.
Yeah. And the New Republic correction transport that pulls out.
Yeah, right in the opening shot.
It's the barge from that. Yeah.
Is it the same? Cool. Is it the same barge? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
It is.
We get revisited by the Republic security droids that we saw back in season 1. Only it's a singular droid as he makes his way out to where Mayfeld is working and essentially instructs Mayfeld to step down. And he's remanded into the custody of New Republic Marshal Cara Dune.
On our way to meet him, though, we do cross another one of those mugshots.
Oh, that's right.
With Sart Julo.
Right, and I can't remember the name of his species. I spent so much time on Alien Species last night. I was so tired by the time I went to bed. But yes, there's another guy from the mugshot. Guys, if you're not paying attention to our Facebook, and I don't want to take away from the episode, but the three of us actually were quite impressed. Where I think we may have actually scooped some of the bigger media outlets with the mugshots, because
hell yeah,
it wasn't until it was a day later when somebody else finally started saying, these species appeared in this source. But if you didn't notice, the 6 guys from the Marshal who ambushed Mando out in the desert are all in the mugshots, and we did a side-by-side screenshot of their mugshot to their appearance in the episode, so you can go to our Facebook and have a look at that.
We also nailed them on the Mandoa on Boba's communicator on the little hollow there.
That's right, yeah.
With that, like, Circle Wednesday.
There was a lot of... I was surprised at the number of people that were struggling with that. In fact, there's a YouTuber that I've been taken to watch after our show. Because I always find it's more interesting to go see what other people said after we've had our say, because then I don't feel like it spoils our experience. Yeah. But one of them was like, he couldn't decipher it because he didn't figure out to read it vertically. He was trying to read it horizontally, and of course it wouldn't make sense that way.
No.
Yeah. So, but you would have thought, like the columns, just the spacing and the way that the letters appear. Like, yep. It was instantly apparent to me.
Even if you wrote them down in the order that they appeared on the page, you would get the answer.
You would think so. Like in the same shape as the hollow itself. Yeah, it would just be there. So there's some
another time.
Yeah, exactly.
There was critical thinking.
What are you talking about? So there's some objection from Mayfield about where are you taking me? And she says, come on, I got a job for you. And as they go off, there's a neat little piece with the droid who basically brandishes his stun baton, which you pointed out, Hank, is very, very reminiscent of the baton that came with the 2-1B droid, the Kenner droid.
Super similar.
Yeah,
it's crazy similar. Yeah, I think it's a little longer and more like a, but it's very similar. And then I started thinking that droid kind of looks like a hybrid of 2-1B and K2SO.
On some level, yeah.
Got a couple, but like a lot of those working parts moving together.
Yeah, I would be interested to know, like, down the road, if there's like, if somebody, smarter than us comes up with a list of all the specific 100% confirmed toy references, because there's been a couple that we've spotted, but they tend to be like the super, super obvious ones. And I'm sure, like, I don't know if the stun baton is a callback or not, but there probably are more in there that we're not getting.
I think where we tend to kill it is with the West End Games stuff that we spot.
Well, there is that, yeah.
Spotting that stuff. Yeah, we I think we're right on that.
And that's going to come up again today. That's going to come up again today. So yeah, we get everybody over to where we see the Slave One is now parked on the chop fields.
There's a shot there, and it was thematically, it's parked up on the hill.
Yeah, and
it sort of blends in with all the garbage.
It does, yeah.
Thematically, for me, that was like The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, dumping the garbage. Yeah, that's exactly. Cool.
So yeah, thematically, I felt like that. Absolutely.
Funny, I didn't make that connection. I don't know why I didn't either. Interesting. Maybe it was the orientation. I don't know. Everybody we have our first big conflab. Everybody comes together, and lo and behold, Boba Fett's got a new paint job, baby. What do we all think of that?
Maybe the paint was in the hold. It's great. It's really great. It's the freshest paint job we've ever seen him have, even from 40 years ago.
Yeah.
I called up the animated figure to see how it tracked. I had forgotten, and or not the animated figure, but the action figure. I don't own one anymore. And I was looking at images of it. I'd forgotten that his helmet was gray.
The toy was gray.
Green,
No, it's right.
The rest of his armors.
Yeah.
But it looks like, I don't know, it's a flat olive drab green and the bright mustard yellow. It looks really sharp against the black now that it's all redone. All the decals are redone perfectly, all the details in the helmet. And I believe there's a new paint job on the jetpack too, like a different color
scheme. Yeah. I liked it. Yeah. I liked it a lot. If you want to equate it back to a toy, Hank, take a look at the Kenner 12-inch Boba. I think there's some more, a little more consistency there, though. But interestingly enough, so again, here we go down to, is this a writing choice? Is this like one of those things that we do to accommodate the actor? Because he's still wearing the robes. And I thought for sure that eventually, like, he would ditch them. But that doesn't seem to be the case. So is this...
It's a new Boba Fett.
I get that it's a new Boba Fett, but is this... And I don't want to speak poorly of the man, but is this just their way of concealing Tamura's kind of dad bod? We talked about this before, so...
Or it could be them...
Yeah, it could be.
It could also be them visually representing that he's now on a new moral path.
Yeah, I totally buy into that. We talked about last week the metaphorical, how the show is probably what came out of that initial announcement many, many, many years ago, pre-Clone Wars, that there was a live-action Boba Fett series coming. So maybe it ties into that whole assumption or the speculation we made last week about we know the show is a metaphorical passing of the torch. Maybe this ties into that, maybe the literal passing, and that's going to come up again later today as well. Before we move on from, go ahead.
I think you might see more of Boba Fett in the show in season 3, because glaringly absent from the Disney announcements was this rumored Boba Fett.
Yeah, it's just not there, and that's interesting to me. It's like, oh, they're going to keep him hanging around for this one? I think that they're on some level, this is going into speculation country, but I think on some level, Boba Fett's at a point in his life where, maybe he's content to fade away, to fade off into the twin sunsets, as it were. And again, maybe there will be a literal passing of the torch. Some of the other outlets that cover the stuff that we do speculated that, will Din Djarin inherit the Slave One? that totally ties into what we said last week. Maybe this is a passing of the torch. And as Andy said, maybe not even Boba Fett. Maybe it's the transition from Din Djarin to Mandalore.
That's
either way. I'm super excited to see how that goes. Before we move on from Boba Fett, though, brand spanking new shiny EE3 carbine blaster, looking better than it's ever looked before.
Fantastic.
Mayfeld, with his initial glance, he's like, "Oh, I thought you were this other guy." And no sooner does he say that, and here comes Mando down the boarding ramp. And then there's some exposition there, and I didn't write down all the dialogue. This episode was really dialogue heavy, and I didn't have the energy to write it all down. But to cover sort of the emotional beats of it, essentially they want him for his Imperial connections, and he's
super reluctant the whole
time. He is,
yeah.
He kind of balks at that, like, hey, that was a long time ago, but not so long ago that he's still not up on his Imperial clearances and protocol.
Yeah, it's literally Gideon that checks him. The name Gideon goes, nope.
Yeah,
nope.
exactly.
I want to go back to the scrapyard.
Exactly.
Scrapyard's better than dealing with Gideon. So.
Yeah, and like you say, like it's this reluctancy because even though, I can't say that he reluctantly accepts, he doesn't have a choice in this. He does this, the over the shoulder, like he doesn't know what he's getting into. It's almost that like that downtrodden, like, if the chop yards are the frying pan, getting on board Slave One is the fire. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, they board the ship and we get the title cards. Roll title cards. The next scene, I really love the next scene. It's an interior shot of Slave One. Everybody's strapped into their seats and they're laying out sort of what's happened to Grogu and what they want him for to help get him back. And like you say, he's like, I'm not going to do it, at the name drop of Gideon. But then they say, he's got the kid. And he's like, the little green guy? And immediately we see a change in Mayfeld where there's like, what? You had an affection for the green guy? We've never seen this before, right? So
I love what's going on in the background there, too, with the rotating hull.
I wanted to bring that up specifically.
Yeah.
We've never had an interior shot of the hold of Slave One. It's always been the cockpit, and we understood that the pilot's seat, they have to move on some level so he can get in and out of them. But even in this episode, you see where he's in the horizontal position and he's laying on his back. Yeah, but to see the whole cargo hold rotate inside of the hull of the ship. What a super cool shot. Yeah.
Evocative of the Kenner toy with the gyroscopes on the wings so that when you invert the ship and then the little trigger to lock them into flying position.
Yeah,
so
very much so.
But yeah, that little internal reminded me totally of the Kenner toys.
Yeah. And so Mayfeld for a moment reverts to his, his fast talking ways and he thinks he can bargain his way out of it. But Cara Dune, of course, shuts him down with, that's not how this works. Well, what's in it for me? And she says, you get a better view, which is kind of evocative of any number of like prison scenarios. It's not a new line. We've heard this before across many, many different media.
Oh. And the other thing is seeing a prison camp like that controlled by the Republic also lends to sort of start to gray these lines, which is later on in the episode, you really get a blurred line between what's right and what's wrong, and what's good and what's evil in terms of what we know. And again, it adds to the title. In
the War is Hell speech, it becomes very apparent. Yeah. I've taken later on, I'll bring it up, but I'll put it out there now. The whole episode, and in fact, a lot of episodes are what I like to call the giant mirror that Mando may have been reluctant to look in up till now. All these side characters that with all these like deep histories and tons of exposition are like metaphorical mirrors for him. And this episode really encapsulates that.
I agree.
So Mayfeld lays out that he needs access to an Imperial terminal if he's to be able to do this. And he tells them that he might be able to get to one on the planet Morak. So Morak is as far as I can tell, is a new planet that we've never heard of before. I couldn't find a reference for it anywhere else. Turns out what's that?
New reference on Wikipedia. That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought it was sounding pretty first watch anyway. It sounded pretty close to Morag from Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, didn't it though? You expecting to see a giant head? So they all say, but there's nothing on Morak, and he's like, no, there's a secret mining facility that's there. So yeah, secret mining facility. We get the idea that they can break in, get the code, get out, and it should be an open and shut, relatively simple case. Of course, we're going to find out that that's not the case when we get there. We get there, and there's this initial scan of the planet before they make planetfall, and they get a hollow projection of a refinery where they say that, what is it called? It's rhydonium. So there's a rhydonium processing facility. And conveniently enough, rhydonium is very much like the coaxium hyperfuel that we saw back in Solo. In fact, it shares some of the same properties, being highly volatile and explosive.
Does,
yeah.
It's an older type of fuel, and it's almost gone out of the galaxy.
Rhydonium is referenced a couple times in Rebels.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Clone Wars.
Yeah.
The Separatists steal a Venator class ship, load it with rhydonium, and try to blow up a tactics symposium at a Republic spaceport.
Okay.
In Clone Wars, and it's Hera and Sabine use it to destroy some Fire Nox.
Yeah.
On a mission, and it's also if you look a little deeper in the lore, it's in the comics, some of the novels. There's 3 other worlds. I have notes on them. I don't know if I have them.
I saw that one of them was what Apex or.
That's right.
Apex.
And they're all controlled by the Hutts.
Yeah. So
Abathar, Sarakor,
that's right.
and Trogaria.
Yeah.
All, and also, it's one of the highly sought after things when people scavenge Jakku.
Yeah. Okay.
There's so much, and so it's a really volatile place to actually scavenge and grow up. Makes Rey kind of a little bit hardier. Presumably,
they're hauling it out of the downed Star Destroyers.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's one of the most valuable sort of commodities that you could get on Jakku. Finding a rhydonium stash. So it's kind of cool. The canisters are identical to the canisters from Rebels, although they're longer and thinner. But they're the same red with the sort of pink
same paint markings. Yeah. That's there's that episode you were talking about where Sabine and Hera, they're like stuck in a hangar and they're shooting it to. Yeah, I remember that one now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, along with the holo display, there's some tactical, strategical information that we glean from that, and the fact that there's anti-aircraft guns, anti-aircraft gun emplacement, and it's mentioned that there's a platoon of troops defending the refinery. Skip ahead for a second to the closing credits and the artist rendition, the rendering of the facility. A lot different because in that it's a classic turbo laser battery that we saw on the Death Star. Yes. And I thought, wow, would that episode play out a whole lot different if it wasn't this like open seated, twin cannon, single guy operated gun. But turns out, no, it's just it looks very much like a Second World War anti-aircraft gun, really.
And it's funny, there must be some hell of scanning equipment on Slave One, because for a secret facility, he certainly accesses all the information really easily.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was one of the ones where I went, And
it is kind of funny with Fennec too, right? Saying there's a platoon rather than just, in previous episodes where it's like, yeah, there might be a squad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
chalk it up to Slave One's awesome scanners.
Yeah. So the next scene we get it's like a ridge top, I guess, sort of in the jungle line, but high up on a ridge. We have what I'm taking to calling the crew. I know we talked about that last episode that Mando was going to put a crew together. So for all intents and purposes, collectively, everybody is now called the crew.
Yes.
So the crew is staring down this road that goes into this like mountainous tunnel, and they see this articulated mining transport kind of go by, and it's kind of cool. It's got like this centipede kind of look to it. The plan being to replace the drivers on one of the transports to get in the refinery, get the coordinates, and then make our way to the rooftop for a dust-off style extraction by Boba Fett. But in order to do that...
Covered by the snipers.
Exactly. But in order to do that, Mayfeld and at least one other crew member, they have to knock out a couple of drivers so that they can impersonate them in order to get into the base. Because as Mayfeld says that this base is run by X, all these remnant bases are set up and run by ISB agents.
Mm-hmm.
So that really knocks a dent into who can pull this off, because as he points out, he's free and clear. Fennec can't do it because she says she's wanted. Cara Dune offers to go, but Mayfeld's like, sure, I'd love to, as much as I'd love to go in with this rebel dropper. He makes a point to say that there's essentially genetic markers that if they turn up on any registry, he says it would be guns out. So essentially, it would be a done deal. And then
I kind of had a problem with this.
Why is that?
Because he says if they scan you, they'll find out who you are. But Gideon knows who Din Djarin is too.
That's right.
The chain codes are ostensibly all available to whoever wants to look at them, and the characters would be wearing helmets anyway.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird that he's forced into that. I got to take my helmet off.
Well,
I have
again,
3 other people that could do it but are unwilling.
So again,
And
is this
like?
Is it a writing thing, like the thing with the convenient? It's a convenience factor where we need to position these people to certain roles, and this is how we do it.
And it's fairly thin to me.
Like it's a contrivance, right?
A little bit. To me, it is. I understand that the dramatic beats that happen because of it.
Yeah.
And I understand that there's more thematic. It's a little deeper than that, but for like the way we get there is a little thin for me. But
yeah, I can
okay.
I can definitely see
face.
that.
Let's give it to the guy who never shows his face.
Right. But I love the line from Boba Fett where he's like,
line of the episode.
My face is highly recognizable.
Yes. There may be a couple million guys in the galaxy.
Which is interesting at this point, because it suggests that the collective memory of the galaxy is not as short when it comes to the clone army as it is with the Jedi.
No, exactly. Well, exactly. And they're the master propagandists, right?
Right, exactly.
All the Empire posters and the holovids and, join the Empire. And there's a lot of that going on, right? So, not after the war ostensibly, but
that's right.
During the Galactic Civil War. And for a large portion of that, we sort of tend to forget that the Empire just ruled.
That's right.
We didn't get into the Galactic Civil War till the movie started.
No, you're right.
The whole time that Rebels is happening, the whole time after Revenge of the Sith, it's just the Empire running roughshod on the galaxy. Yeah,
and as you say, Rebels, at least in the early seasons, there's no cohesion to there's no Rebel Alliance. It's individual independent cells of insurgents, because that's what they would be, who are operating against the legitimate government, dictatorship or not. They are the legitimate government. So it's
Absolutely.
kind of
the first inklings of a Rebel Alliance are cut from Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah. That's right. But it's in the novel, that whole meeting that they have in Padme's apartment with Mon Mothma and Bail Organa and some other senators. But she does not want to be. And she says specifically, she's like, I don't want anything to do. She's like, I believe in whatever it is you're doing, but I want no part of it, because if something ever happens, I can't tell them what I don't know. Yeah. Essentially is what it boils down to.
I think even in the cutscene, it's referred to as a Rebel Alliance.
It may be. I'd have to go back and have a look at it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while. But...
Or he may have spoken loosely about our alliance, or the alliance that we're forming, but
exactly.
It's on the nose to the fan anyway.
I wonder if cutscenes are canon.
You know what? I don't know, because some of those, again, going back to that. It came
up last episode about the dent in Boba's helmet and how he got it in canon. But it's a cutscene from Clone Wars.
Right.
So is it canon?
Or, the earlier script drafts that make it into the novelizations, but they're not part of the film,
Right.
Certainly.
Right. So there is a tiny gray area there.
There is. I'm sure the straight answer is, if it didn't happen visually, it didn't happen. But, I still like to have that little error margin of error where maybe my headcanon it makes me maybe just that much more happier or angry, depending on what it is.
I'm like a VT1S. I have 4 headcanons.
Yeah, really. So Mando volunteers, which, is like, oh, how's this going to work? Uses his, once again, Mando vision. We take a close-in zoom up on the cab of one of the transports. And we can see that driver and co-driver each are dressed, now it's muted, but they're wearing the tank driver armor that we saw back in Rogue One.
Absolutely. And on successive watches of this, what I realized was in that moment, that's when he gets the idea for the helmet. And so before that moment, I can see why the other 3 characters thought they'd have to walk in dressed the way they were dressed, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's almost like that's the moment he comes up with the plan
to
change helmets.
Yeah.
Because he does say, I won't be showing my face.
Exactly, but I won't be showing my face. So we get a cool shot here where Mayfeld, Cara, and Mando drop down onto the mining vehicle as it's passing into one of the tunnels. Great little camera trick too. I stopped it and I watched it a couple of times. I said to my wife, I'm like, that's cool. You want to see this camera trick? And she's like, what's that? I'm like, when they jump onto the top of that, it's not moving. It's the camera panning around and it creates that illusion of motion. But old filmmaking techniques that are still super, super effective. And that's one of them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to talk a little bit about this transport because it's another one of our callbacks. Like it's got this it's like a, for lack of a better word, it's like this reptilian sort of head on it, which I refer to as the cab, and it's articulated like a centipede. So it's almost like, they said it's a 10-wheeled transport. So I just assume, but when you look at it, it looks modular. Like to me, they could have stuck in 2 or 3 times as many pods and it would still work because they just link together like a train, and that's sort of the vibe that I got from it. But
absolutely,
we get back to our second and third viewings and stuff where we put all the nannies on with the descriptive audios and the subtitles, and descriptive audio lady this week referred to it as a juggernaut. And
yes, sir.
Yeah, so Juggernaut, there's a history here for Juggernaut in Star Wars, particularly when you go back, at least visually speaking. Juggernaut is the same name given to what they called the old turbo tank from the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And if you don't
HAW-A5.
Yeah, and so if you don't remember that, it's the multi-wheeled vehicle that looked like an AT-AT on wheels. I think that's the easiest way to describe that.
Absolutely. From the old West End games, once again.
Yeah, so this thing shares a similar design aesthetic with the HAV Juggernaut, the turbo tank from Revenge of the Sith, and then we saw it again in Rogue One because it was being used as a prisoner transport to move Jyn Erso and those other prisoners. But yeah, so the earliest reference that I can find for this thing, and I remember it immediately because I thought it was cool even back then, was back in the West End games, the Imperial Source Book, 1989.
Yes, sir.
A couple big differences, though, that the one in the Imperial Source Book has like a gun turret like on the cab, and there's like a big conning tower sticking out the back end of it. But like the profile is...
It's got like a dome-mounted cannon on the front.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But outside of those two features, it's the same thing that we see in Revenge of the Sith.
Who's to say they didn't mod it because of the terrain? Like those are fairly short rooftops they're passing under.
Exactly.
So,
but even the cab is a little more squat. Like it's not as tall, I guess.
Certainly, we're years on, so perhaps it's an A6, A7, A8, A9.
Yeah,
like
it's
model, right?
I feel like it's got to be like a family of vehicles. And this is like, again, it makes sense when you're talking from a military perspective, where you have, a series of vehicles that have a similar chassis, but they're kitted out differently for different roles. So maybe because they certainly share the same sort of the wheels and the wheel hubs with that central bar is very reminiscent of what we saw in the other two sources.
Like a Neon and a PT Cruiser.
Yeah, exactly. So same chassis, same engine, that kind of stuff. Interesting note here at this point. So Kara, who is now wearing her New Republic Marshal badge as a belt buckle,
Yes, sir.
which I thought was a cool way to, because I'm like, how's she going to carry that thing? But now it's perfect. She's wearing it. She's really wearing it out there now. She drops into the cockpit and single-handedly muscles these two guys into the dashboard, knocking them out, which I thought, yeah, she's still pretty badass.
Oh, yeah.
At which point she stops the whole transport. And then we get this whole little moment where, they're changing, where Mayfeld really gets into this like, oh my God, this guy stunk. The gloves are still wet. And, like it really plays on the whole idea that the planet, this jungle planet is, it's hot and sticky and
humid.
Yeah, it really comes through in that.
It led me to a strange thought, too. If this guy's been wearing that armor for a shift,
yeah, oh yeah.
Imagine how bad the inside of Mando's helmet smells. Since he's had Grogu, late like a year, he's been sleeping in it.
Yes.
It just hit me, and I went, "Oh!" I shuddered, and it was the line about how the gloves were wet and how the armor smelled.
Yeah,
and it was like that led me right to that thought. I went, "Oh,
yeah."
Geez.
And then we see Mando kind of come out from an outcrop, from around a corner, sort of in the tunnel. And he's dressed head to toe in the tank driver armor, and he's got a big sack, presumably full of his Beskar.
And so for the first time, and I got them right here beside me.
Yep.
I got a mud trooper, and I got the armored, the hover tank pilot.
Yep.
And they've mashed them together. And
yeah.
The palette is the exact same as the Mimbon trooper. That olive drab, almost gray.
Yes.
And they're almost identical, except they just put the helmet.
Put the tank driver helmet, yeah. Because to me, like the tank driver, I have a tank driver in my 6-inch collection, and to me, it's like the tank driver has like the shore trooper armor with the tank driver helmet. Yeah,
exactly. You're exactly right. So they're mixing and matching, which is cool because we all want to do that.
I feel like
I'd love every helmet that comes with a 6-inch figure to be removable just for that reason.
Yeah. What I like about it is it's indicative of different roles across the military. Like, if these guys are, essentially truck drivers, there's less of a need for them to be as armored as a tank commander, maybe? Or arguably, it's reversed because maybe there's more armor on a tank than there is on a truck. But, well, that's me just trying to make it work.
I think we've just struck on an idea for Disney there.
What's that?
Say, clone trooper or trooper build set.
Oh, yeah, really?
Trooper. Oh, man.
Yeah, build it. We got the droid factory. Give me the cloning chamber.
Come on, Hasbro, make it happen.
Build my own clone. Build my own trooper.
I think it's called a 3D printer, fellas.
Yeah. So speaking of jokes, we get Mayfeld going back to sort of his mouthpiece ways, and there's a couple of lines. Oh, the shame. And I thought, wow, that's pretty ballsy for someone who's on loan from prison. At the same time, I guess he's of the mindset, what have I got to lose? And then there's
this is it. He's in now.
He's definitely in. Makes a couple more overtures about wishing that Kara was coming along because someone with your sunny disposition, and then even goes back to Mando and just starts poking at Mando about, what would they say on Mandalore? And I thought, man, you're skirting the edge here. Like, I'd almost be inclined to pop him one in the nose.
Yeah. As soon as I see the guy, but that's a whole different thing. But it does lend to his growth as a character. I have to admit that it took me several watches, but that little barbing there adds depth to what happens next.
It's almost
it really does.
We do it all the time in the military where we poke each other and we rib and we jab, and it's like this, it's a sense of humor that unless you work in one of those environments, I think it's hard maybe for somebody who doesn't to understand it, but really it's almost out of a sense of camaraderie, I guess.
You're getting more comfortable with
the
people.
Yeah, for sure. For
It's
sure.
exactly the same on a large construction crew.
I think so, yeah.
You know,
So they bound up in the cab and they start making their way over to the refinery.
There is one point there, though,
Yep.
that is kind of a throwback to what I said in the first season piece
Yes.
about Mando and Kara kind of being like the metaphorical father and mother for Grogu.
Oh, yeah.
And it'll play out later in what the people around Din see.
Okay.
But Mayfeld kind of poking at their moment where he's passing the armor off to her.
Yeah.
And he's like, come on, we got to go.
Right.
And they're almost sharing a moment.
Yeah.
no,
Almost.
that's very true.
I thought.
She says very specifically, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I thought you were going to make a crack about Mayfeld being the cool uncle.
No, maybe, but no.
Maybe.
Fun Bobby.
Maybe later, but not as of right now.
I think it's more or less what the outside viewpoint of Din is as compared to what he sees himself as.
Yeah.
Like other people are kind of taking notice of his changes.
Yep.
And that'll kind of play more heavy later, but
Yeah, it really will. So the whole drive is punctuated with Mayfeld trying to make small talk, and he doesn't really get through. You know, Mando is like this wall of silence staring at the window, and he really he's not budging a bit. So finally, you know, he's like, I'm just going to take my helmet off here because it's cooler without it. And
I don't know how you people do this.
yeah, exactly.
And
and by you people, I mean Mandalorians. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that a Don Cherry reference? You people?
Maybe.
I think
Maybe.
it was. Well, it's a lot like his stand-up comedy,
Which I am
He's
not
known for
familiar
being,
with.
yeah, he's not known for being exactly polite.
Okay,
or-
fair enough.
Yeah,
So coming out,
very outspoken, if you will.
Could
coming
also
out-
be a throwback to a Tropic Thunder reference. What do you mean, you people?
oh yeah.
Well, it sort of is a reference to that, but in a larger picture, I think, if you know what I mean.
That it's a racial connotation.
Yeah, exactly, and he's
Yeah.
known for some racially sensitive comedy.
Oh, sure. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they pass out the other end of the tunnel, and we can see Fennec has an overwatch position high up on a ridge, and she's watching them through the scope of her rifle, and she makes the first call, which is, I found this whole thing is very militant, like operationally speaking, where she basically calls it in. Phase 1 complete, we're in, and now they move into the next phase of the operation. Boba Fett's
is
like,
this the part where they scope the actual troops on the roof?
no, not yet. They've just come out of the tunnel.
Okay.
They still have
Okay,
to get
that's
to
right.
the village. So Boba Fett
Oh,
responds.
she's just letting out Boba.
Yeah, so he responds with a copy standing by. And then there's some more, one-sided small talk. And this is where things start to get a little bit like pensive, because we see the first burned out hulk of another juggernaut on the side of the road. And Mayfeld's like, he's got this look of like, what the hell happened here?
Mm-hmm.
And sort of similarly, on the right-hand side, we see another one. But no sooner does that happen that there's a the comm chatter breaks, and there's another there's a message basically warning them to be cautious of their speed and cargo temperature, and we get this like display screen that comes up, and it's clearly it's a heat gauge of some kind, and it's all green. So good to know that our cargo is not about to burst.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Mando finally breaks his silence with, don't worry about the radonium. As long as you drive steady, you'll get us to the refinery.
Exactly. This whole scene is like that Vietnam War movie.
Yeah,
style,
exactly.
really driving down jungle roads, trying not to upset your load, and then we head into a small hamlet.
Right down to, there's a lady crosses the street, and she's got like, it's almost like, I don't want to say a bucket of rice, but she's got she's
No, it's like
balancing
a
a
rice
thing
bowl.
on her head.
100%. I think they
Yeah.
even say like a rice bowl in the descriptive audio.
Yeah,
Something,
yeah.
or a bowl at least. And they have to honk the horn to get the people out of
Oh,
the way.
big
Like,
time,
they just
yeah.
don't care. Like there's a lot of apathy.
Oh, big time.
He locks eyes with that kid, and that's a really good moment, because the kid can't. He's like like leering at the cargo vessel,
Yeah.
but Din sees himself there,
Oh, big time.
and I think that's why that kid has the brown eyes and the brown hair. Brown
Yeah,
eyes.
yeah.
So I think that's really, like, there's a lot of changes happening for him in this episode.
Yeah.
And that kid is played by Tahoe DeVito from Colony.
I'm not familiar with that.
I am not either.
Okay. Well, for anybody
Colony's
who's
a pretty neat show.
a Colony fan, there you go.
Yeah, it's a neat show.
So it's at that time. So now we've come to the conclusion that, now this is really evocative of that Vietnam War movie sort of vibe. This is where Mayfeld starts getting into what I've called his philosophy on war and choice, comparing the Mandalorian civil wars to the rule of the Empire and questioning how are they any different. And he punctuates it a couple of different ways about, did they have a choice? Did those people who fought in those wars, did they have a choice? And then he's like, someone, he kind of finishes it with someone rules and others are ruled, where we see like, there's a chink in Mayfeld's armor and that there's a real human being in there.
Yeah, he says New Republic or Empire, these people don't care about that.
That's right, yeah.
We're just invaders on their land.
Yeah, exactly. And to me, that's like, so whether it was the NVA or the Americans to the villagers, same thing, different day.
Didn't matter.
Yeah,
Didn't
exactly.
matter. Their freedom was being oppressed. And so this also really digs into, the belief system in the whole show.
This is the first
we get
real
a perspective change here because now our heroes are being vilified.
Yeah. And this is the first instance of what I call the metaphorical mirror. Yes. Because Mando's immediately, he's like, let's get one thing straight. You and I are nothing alike. When really, he's saying that for his benefit, not for Mayfeld's. It's the same, he's talked out loud to convince himself of things that he's not sure of before. And this is another example of that, of like being forced to look at himself through the lens of somebody else.
Agreed. And then there's a really interesting piece of stuff here that I probably overanalyzed these few lines way too much last night. But he says, if you're from Mandalore, you believe one thing.
Yep.
If you're from Alderaan, you believe another thing. But neither of those places exist anymore.
Yeah.
So what does it matter? And so Mandalore doesn't exist anymore? Wait a minute. We know, and he mentions it in the same breath with Alderaan, which is very telling.
Yeah.
Alderaan, we all know famously, is gone.
Yeah, like Death Star.
Death Star gone. Like public knowledge gone.
Triple reactor ignition.
Exactly. And so we have three things here that different factions, if you will, believe in about Mandalore. We have Din Djarin, and therefore the religious cult upbringing of the Mandalorians believe that it's uninhabitable by some crazy imperial magic, if you will.
Yeah.
You go there and you die.
Then
there's the real Mandalorians, Bo-Katan, who's the heiress, who believes someday she can go back there and rule.
That's right.
And then there's ex-imperial or imperial remnants who are told Mandalore's gone, destroyed like Alderaan.
Yeah.
What's the truth there? And I think that's very compelling. Those little lines, Mandalore being gone in the same breath as Alderaan being gone, may lend some credibility to what we were talking about before, that maybe the Death Star did a number on it. Its way. Yeah,
exactly.
Alderaan.
A single reactor ignition a la Jeddah City would definitely bring a planet to heal, and then it would be very easy for the Imperials to, as we've seen before, manipulate official records and change history that way.
And it's funny, the littlest things make your mouth water, and
they really do. Yeah,
a big one.
I like that he points out about, again, talking about the rules, and he makes a point of distinction about, the rules change based on the situation, and he's like, you can't take off your helmet until things get really hot, and then you do. And he's like, listen, there's a difference between taking your helmet off and showing your face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, literally the line is, that's exactly the line.
Yeah.
And he understands better than Mando does in that moment that there is a difference between that. So what do you actually believe in? Because everybody gets desperate.
I feel like that line,
and their beliefs are questioned when you're put on the spot like that.
Looking back at the metaphorical mirror, that line about taking your helmet off versus showing your face is almost allegorical. When we talked about Bo-Katan, when she gave Din Djarin the tributary, "This is the way," I had said that, maybe what she's really saying is there is another way. And I feel like Mayfeld's line of dialogue about taking the helmet off is again, it's an allegory for what Bo-Katan has already told him, that there's another way.
So I was going to try to save this for the end of the episode, but I simply can't.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
He hasn't said this is the way since the Bo-Katan episode.
Yeah.
Not once. Said it in every single episode up until then.
Interesting. I never picked up on that. So that's an interesting...
Episode 11 was the last time he said the words, and I think the last time the words were said were actually Bo-Katan.
Yeah, really.
That lends so much weight to what you're saying.
Yeah, to his evolution as a character.
And so the believer is Din Djarin.
Yeah, for sure.
What does he believe in? It's about the believer, but not what's believed.
Yeah.
That makes it easier for me because his beliefs are being questioned at every turn. He's having revelations every 30 seconds in this episode.
Yeah, and I mean we've dug down on this for quite a few episodes on sort of the transitory nature of his characterization going from surrogate protector to father figure, and we've made that conclusion that he's fully made that transition, but this may be the episode where it's acceptance for him.
And I also feel it's such a bold choice for the writing team.
Yeah.
And the creative team to abandon the tagline.
Oh, yeah.
Of the entire show. Because that's their marketing tool. This is the way is on everything.
If he ever makes contact with another covert of the Children of the Watch, it'd be interesting to see how that plays out, how they interact with each other. If there would be a this is the way, or, if it would just be left at something else, like, yeah, whatever.
There has been no way specific for 4 episodes.
Yeah.
You're listening to Fandom Power.
Interestingly enough, we get another break in the comm at this point, and there's a situation report about what they call there may be some interference. And no sooner do they say the words interference, there's like the tone changes. There's some panic. We hear a couple of blaster shots, and then there's this massive explosion through the window of the cab of the truck, and it's like, holy shit. And then immediately after that, a second explosion. So now we get this...
Mayfield steers around the second
explosion. He does. He drives around the explosion.
Got some chops. I'm coming around.
At this point, we get this scene where one of the big action set pieces, sequences of the episode, and we get this pirate attack. So the pirates roll up on these skiffs. And the skiffs are it's like a hybrid. Kind of reminded me a bit of like the skiffs that they stole in Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Kind of mashed together with like the design aesthetic of Enfys Nest's swoop gang with the big fins.
They show the shots from behind. They have a sort of single engine off to the left-hand side.
Yeah.
They're mashing a few things together there. It's real cool. Definitely the ailerons at the front remind you of Jabba's skiffs.
They do. I spent a lot of time on this because it was getting, and we talked about it quite a bit last night, the pirates themselves. So not sure if it's the first time in the show's history, but it's the first time that I can think of that we've noted. We're introduced to a brand new alien species that we've never seen before.
And just before you found that, I was resigned to the fact that this is the first time that we've been stumped.
You know what? I wasn't going to bed until we had an answer. And I worked on it. I don't know what time I sent that message, but it was after 9, I think.
I got it this morning.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was after 9 Eastern time when I sent it, but it was, So the aliens, I'm like, they've got like they're not horns, but they're not really head tails as much as they're like growing out of their face. These kind of bulbous, long protrusions. Anyway, the turns out that they are called the Shydop, and we don't know anything about them. Don't know where they're from. Don't know a thing about them other than the rabbit hole. I found a reference. It was on RogerEbert.com, and RogerEbert.com was the only outlet that had reported on the name of the species. And I'm like, okay. Wow. And it was the official photo. The photo caption actually had the name Shydop in it. So I did a reverse image on the photo, and that took me back to the Disney's own media website. And it had the official photo with the photo caption, and it's like, Shydop Pirates. I'm like, okay.
We're going to have to start frequenting that.
Yeah, so I sent it over to both of you to bookmark for your own research purposes. So now I don't have to go and steal photos anymore when I want to do a social media post.
So before we get into the serious action here, because this is an amazing scene.
Yeah, it really is.
The train is always amazing, ostensibly. This is another thing that talks about the believer.
Yeah.
What you believe in as the viewer now.
Yeah.
These are ostensibly, so these guys aren't trying to loot this, right? They're not trying to steal the Rhydonium.
No, they're just trying to stop it.
They're trying to destroy it because they know what the Empire will do with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so these are the good guys.
Yeah, it's almost like they're the
these are the Bothan spies, bro. These are, you know what I mean?
In the Vietnam allegory, it's the oh my lord, what are the side that fought with the Americans?
Oh, the NVA?
Is that it? The NVA? Am I getting my terms wrong? I thought the NVA was the bad guys.
Oh, Arvin, the Arvin.
The Arvin, yeah.
That's it. My bad. Yeah.
Yeah, so these would be, the equivalent of the Arvin, except just not as well equipped, apparently.
Well, and yeah, exactly. Well, everybody's got a thermal detonator.
Well, I laughed at that. We've got the both ends of the spectrum. On one end, we're armed with spears, but everybody's got at least one thermal detonator.
Well, they spent all their money on thermal detonators and couldn't afford anything other than
skip fuel.
Yeah.
Well, this is it. It's like, if you've been doing this for a while, you can't tell me that these guys didn't scavenge a blaster for here or there. But anyway, I digress on that.
Yeah, I think it's just really the whole thing. Like, we'll get into the details of it, but the whole thing is a role reversal, because now ostensibly our heroes are Imperials trying to
that's right
safely get this fuel to the depot.
Yep.
And the bad guys are the rebels trying to stop them from getting the fuel so that they can wreak havoc on the galaxy. It's crazy. It's crazy juxtaposition of what do you believe? What's your perspective? What is what here in the galaxy? And I think that's what the whole episode is about, is the perspective.
Yep, it is. And we get several perspectives, and like you say, from our initial thoughts, like, we get several metaphorical perspectives from several characters across this episode. So yeah, I mean, it's all starting to come together now.
Yeah, they really do start to solidify by the end.
Yeah. So they start trying to board the transport, and like you say, we're going back to the Western theme. It's the fight on top of the train, and these guys are trying to pop the storage containers so they can get at the Rhydonium containers, and they want to drop a thermal detonator in there, and like you say, blow it up and get rid of it. Now Mando's at his own devices, starts blasting them, blasts a couple guys off the side, and we get a flash on the display, and it's now very red, and the Aurebesh translates as, no surprise here, warning!
Warning.
So they try to plant a thermal detonator on the Rhydonium, but Mando shoots the pirate off, and his detonator explodes, taking the first pirate skiff with it. So that's very convenient. But two more pirate skiffs pull up. Mando tries to hold them off with his pistol, but the pistol jams. So up he goes up onto the roof, and it becomes this big. And I didn't lay out all of the beats of the fight because it's a very long sequence, but it's like this huge hand-to-hand Mando to pirate spear to, as the descriptive audio lady, I got the big laugh this week when she said, puts up his dukes.
Puts up his dukes. Yeah. There's some really good beats in this. I got most of them, but for me, the first hand-to-hand interaction is he's back turned to the majority of them, dealing with one, and a guy takes his spear and smashes him in the shoulder.
Destroying,
around,
shatters that pauldron.
Shatters the shoulder plate.
Yeah.
And then he turns around to engage, and the guy swings the spear again, and he block. This like the classic sort of karate block.
Yeah.
Where his Beskar bracer would be.
That's right.
So he's all training. He's all body memory.
Yep.
And it shatters on his arm, and he takes a blow there. It's the first time you really see, he's sort of hurt in that moment.
I think that's the big takeaway from that whole sequence is that he's been, encapsulated in Beskar his whole bounty hunter career, and there's an inherent reliance there that suddenly, what's Batman without his bag of tricks, right? He's just a detective, and so what's Mando without his armor? He's just a highly skilled guy, but as you say, the muscle memory and the training, he's taken a beating for the first time like we've never seen before.
And you sort of start to see that much of his technique relies upon the Beskar.
Yeah, it does.
The headbutts and the ability to take a blaster shot to get a better shot at your enemy. It very much, like he takes a shot from a spear off this helmet.
Yep.
And it rocks him a little. Yeah, it's fantastic. And I don't know if the actors were doing it on purpose or if that actual contraption was moving, but they're off balance while they're fighting, and it's real cool. As
far as Western train fights go, I found it to be as good as anything I've seen before. Maybe, and I don't know if I say maybe even better, but I'm not sure if it's because I'm just, I'm part of the built-in fan base who loves Star Wars.
I had a real Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade vibe, especially when the one guy gets knocked off and goes under the wheel.
Oh yeah, the boom boom.
Yeah. So I got that kind of vibe too. And again, that's reversed because, it's not the bad guys trying to mount the tank.
He just went under the tires.
Did either of you get the sense that when that first guy, when Mando flipped him forward over the cab of the transport and he slid down the windshield and Mayfeld kind of watched him go, did anybody get the sense that when he fell off the front of the truck that Mayfeld kind of aimed a little bit to make sure he got him with the wheels?
I didn't notice that, but maybe.
I kind of feel like he did. Any more you want to talk about the fight sequence?
Oh, it was just, they just kept coming. There's a at the end, after they do manage to plant one of the detonators, and he runs up to grabs it and throws it and blows up two of the skiffs, and the explosion throws him way back. It's really cool. They must have yanked him back on wires. And he's sitting there on one elbow, breathing really heavy. And then out of the explosion, two more skiffs.
Skiffs.
That's the scene when he stands up, and it's very similar to the Mudhorn, where he puts his hands up and this is it.
He's resigned to
every single one of them, because they pan back on the shot, and every single one of them has a thermal detonator now, and he sees it, and his shoulders shrug. He sighs.
Yeah.
He puts his hands up like, this guy's gonna fight to the last.
If I'm going down, I'm going down swinging.
Yeah. And then we get our Apocalypse Now moment,
which is really cool. Like, I never would. It makes sense on some level, but then you hear it. There's this, blast that impacts the road in front of them, and you hear that classic howl of twin ion engines, and a pair of TIE fighters streaked by, strafing the road, ostensibly taking out the skiffs, and it's this triumphant, like, yes, as they literally just got rescued by the Empire.
And it's Mayfield who does the
yeah,
and it's like a very Han Solo kind of thing to do, and so it solidifies the perspective shift, because now the cavalry is TIE fighters. Might be the first time we've ever cheered for TIE fighters. I know there's a lot.
I think so, yeah.
Well, Mayfield throws out that line. Never thought I'd
do the hero pass.
Yeah.
The TIE fighters even do the hero pass on Kara and Fennec.
Yeah, the flyby. I love that.
Just like the X-Wings do in Force Awakens.
That's right.
On Finn. Woohoo!
Yeah.
That's scene all over again, only juxtaposed. It's the inverse.
Oh, for sure it is.
It blurs like what is what. People are just people. That stormtrooper has to go home tonight and eat.
That's right.
At the end of the day.
And speaking of stormtroopers, we see that, as they roll up on the front gate, the platoon's worth of mixed complement, too, of shore troopers and stormtroopers are just barreling down that rickety rusted out bridge, and they unload on the remaining pirates who have now are pursuing on foot.
It's funny, there's a scene there where one of them throws a thermal detonator, but it doesn't go off.
Yeah, I'm like, did that guy just throw a rock? Did he just throw a rock?
Maybe it was a rock. You're right, it could be a rock. Desperate, they charge to the last.
I drop my spear, I'll throw this rock.
Yeah.
But I did spot that, yeah. All right, so there's this moment where they finally...
and then all the troops are lining up, and you get
the big salute moment, and everybody's cheering, and we get inside the hangar, and it's more of the same, and it's pats on the back, and
The one negative thing I'll say about Bill Burr in the whole episode, the one negative thing I will say about him is he gives a slack-ass salute.
That's fair enough. Listen, if we're going to talk about salutes, do you want to do you really want me to go back and point out that there's a sequence or a shot when they're pulling up to the door where everybody's saluting with their left hand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there was a there's a left-handed salute there by like a bunch of guys. I'm like, oh, okay, the Empire salutes with their left hand, and then the next scene they're all saluting with their right hand. I'm like, no,
because it was on opposite truck, if you notice. So they're all like the opposing arms saluting the truck on either side. It's actually.
I'll have to go back and watch it again because I could have swore it was a left-handed salute. And
with Mayfield with the big curved hand.
Oh, I know.
Like never saluted anyone in his life.
Yeah, really.
Awesome.
They get inside, they have the celebratory moment, and it's back to business. And okay, let's find the terminal. Conveniently, as Mayfeld points out, it's probably in the officer's mess. So they're just like, okay, let's go. They make their way over to the officer's mess, and sure enough, they see the terminal. And Mayfeld's like, he's up the stairs, he's 2/3 committed, and suddenly he's like, nope, does a 180 and walks right back out again. And it's like, well, what's wrong? He's like, I can't go in there. He's like, it's Valen Hess. And he's like, what? He's like, it's Valen Hess. It's a guy that I served under. So there's some exposition about, did he make you? He's like, I don't know. He's like, but I don't want to take the chance. He's like, I'm sorry. We got to abort. It's over. And then Mando's
not an option.
Yeah, it's not. He stops him. It's not an option. If we don't do this, I'll lose the kid forever. Mm-hmm. So he's like, give me the stick. And so Mando takes the stick and he heads off like he's going to do the deal himself. And it's like, I'm watching this whole thing and I'm like, there's no way that there's every way that he's going to do this, but you're watching him and it's this like, I can't believe this is about to happen.
Yeah, it's him coming full circle. It's exactly what the whole the mirror thing you're talking about.
Yeah, the
whole thing has been building to this since Bo-Katan took her helmet off.
Yeah, the metaphorical mirror comes full circle once again. That's the
moment that changes everything when Bo-Katan takes her helmet off, explains her legitimacy, and he accepts it.
Yeah, so he's definitely accepting now.
But I had trouble with it at first, absolutely, but success. It really works. And there's some other. Well, it'll come up in a minute, but yeah, let's get to the console.
He does, yeah. So steps up to the console, slaps the data stick in, and starts to manipulate it. And we get the cross-hatched facial scan goes up and down the helmet. And on the readout, we get some more Aurebesh this week, and it's what's the first one here? It's ID scan required. Mm-hmm. And as it reads off his helmet, it gets a false reading. It can't pick up anything. Denied. Yeah, access denied. And then there's like this alarm tone and this computer voice, says facial scan incomplete. 10 seconds to system shutdown. Like,
that seems extreme, doesn't it?
Like you put the wrong password in too many times and it's about to lock you out of your account. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And I wonder, is that
also something? It's something else I don't understand about this. Like, if it's an ID scanner, it doesn't seem to scan your ID. It just seems to confirm that you're human.
Yeah, that's the thing. So
is it part of the xenophobic nature of the Empire?
Maybe. I always assumed
wouldn't scan Thrawn.
I'm gonna go back to the
the
role-playing game for a second, and we've already seen them. They've already used it. Let's talk about code cylinders for a second here.
Sure.
Wasn't that one of the functions of a code cylinder? Was it basically an identity thing, right? Because it was tied to your clearance level.
Yeah, I believe so. Like you could insert your code cylinder, and that would be how you got past all the Yeah, if
Right.
it was top secret, you couldn't access it. It's just like a key with your, like a fob key with your credentials on.
Exactly. And in that sense, I just assumed until I heard data stick, to me, I'm like, oh, he's got a code cylinder. It's going to be a done deal, but again, we have to get him to take his helmet off. And this is the way that they chose to do it. So, but it creates another interesting thing in the sense that we already know that the ISB, or at least at Moff Gideon's level, they already know who Din Djarin is. But now he's taken his helmet off. So now there's a scan of his face on record now for anybody and everybody, not just select operatives of whatever clearance. So I think it makes it, he's just kind of doubled down on the, everybody and their dog is going to be chasing me.
He just came above water for the first time in his whole life.
Right.
And I can totally relate to that.
Yeah. So gets the helmet off, which is funny. There's a little inconsistency here because as soon as the helmet's off, we get a 2-second, second and a half shot of the screen. And I didn't know if you noticed this, but it's like access granted.
Yes.
And then it changes to the
access required.
It goes back to ID scan required. Mm-hmm. Then there's a countdown, and the message then finally flips back over to access granted. So
that's right.
A little inconsistency there, but nothing that really takes away from the impact of the scene. Finally breaking into the computer, we get sort of some sub headings off to the side, and I think they're Andy, you've got them there, don't you?
I do. Top line is database, followed by equipment, personnel, transport, armory, and S forces.
I assume special forces.
I would think so.
Yep.
Makes sense
Absolutely.
to me. Mando inserts the data stick, and the display changes to a schematic of an Arquitens light cruiser. And there's a whole bunch more Aurebesh on that one. Did you pull that out, Hank?
Just that it said it was a cruiser. It didn't say the class. It did say class and 4 numbers that were too blurry for me to establish. And then the word underneath, and I think you guys both got this, or over either side of it, light speed cruiser. And the way I interpreted that one was just that was the capability of this cruiser. And I know you guys sort of had different, perhaps it was at light speed or in real space or...
Well, I'll tell you what I did, and it's kind of silly, but at the same time, I for a second, I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then it's like, no, dummy, you're just reading it wrong. Actually, because the Aurebesh language, if you haven't looked at the Aurebesh alphabet, it's kind of it's a hodgepodge of like sort of runic hieroglyphic style symbols. Take a look at it and just kind of see what it looks like, because the letter R and the letter D are so similar. It's like the number 7, but one has a little schnibby kind of poking out the middle.
It's like a D.
So I'm like, that's an R. What? Light Spear? Is that the name of his ship, the Light Spear? But it's spelt wrong. It's got to be. Is it a typo? No, dummy. It's a D, not an R. It's light speed. So that was my flub this week. Anyway, there's some coordinates there, and I think I've got them here. Not that it matters, but 4589, 448, 881, sector 87? 87, that's right.
Nice. And when I look at the 2 galactic maps, that puts me in the same sector as Mimbon.
Yeah.
And the same sector is Hutt Space, Nal Hutta, Nar Shaddaa, that area.
Oh, cool.
I lay the 2 maps over, and I don't know if they track, but...
I don't know either, but I mean, they've been very good. For the most part, there's been some really good consistency across sort of the franchise, across the sources. So no reason to, presume that they're not consistent until we see something that says otherwise. But
no, certainly. So
at this point, the Imperial officer, Valen Hess, that prevented Mayfeld from going into the mess, has really taken notice of, sort of Mando kind of lingering at the terminal.
You watch the background, he's watching them the whole time.
Yeah, he's been watching the whole time, and now he's really interested in what's going on over there. So
Hey, Trooper.
Yeah, hey, Trooper. And of course, Mando's like, I just need to finish what I'm doing. And he kind of ignores him, but like Hess is really insistent to the point where he admonishes him. Pay attention when a superior.
He doesn't understand the protocol.
Oh, yeah. He's like, what the hell do I do? But he's
What's
like,
your designation?
yeah.
Doesn't understand. I'm a transport driver.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the scene from Half Baked where Dave Chappelle's playing a Jamaican guy, and he's talking to another Jamaican guy, and he says, "What part of Jamaica are you from?" And he says, "By the beach."
By the beach. So yeah, what's your TK number? And he's like, my TK number? And then to the rescue, which you kind of knew, like he had to do something, but you just didn't expect it. Like you didn't think it was part of his characterization.
No.
Mayfeld steps in, and that, he even said, I might be a fast talker, and he proves it here. He's like, oh yeah, it's my commanding officer. It's TK 593. I'm TK 111, Lieutenant, whatever the hell.
Yep, Lieutenant. Yeah, armored transport.
Yeah,
driver,
yeah.
I don't even know if that's right. But then he says the best thing for me. This is such a neat little dip. He can't hear you properly because he got depressurized at the Battle of Tanab.
Yeah, and he totally butchered the pronunciation of it. Tanab.
He butchers the pronunciation of Alderaan early in the episode, and I just sort of stepped over that. He does do that too, Alderaan or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then so if everybody doesn't know, that Battle of Tanab is just sort of referenced in Return of the Jedi when Lando is asked to run the Death Star mission and says somebody must have told him about my little maneuver at the Battle of Tanab.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Which presumably is the operation that he went on that got him promoted to general.
Mm-hmm.
So he tries to make some small talk. He tries to basically bluff his way out and leave. And he throws out this line here, and I howled. I actually had to pause the episode because I was laughing so hard. He's like, "Come on, let's go file those TPS reports."
Yeah.
And if
Brown eyes.
If you've never seen Office Space, the film Office Space, oh my God, you must see this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, TPS reports is a funny throwback to that movie.
I'm going to need you to go ahead and come in on Sunday.
Okay? Yeah. The brown eyes thing. Let's talk about the whole brown eyes thing. I asked Andy on the way in today because I wasn't sure. I didn't put it in my notes, but it's been bugging me. Is this a Planet of the Apes reference?
Ooh.
Brown eyes, blue eyes?
Maybe.
I don't.
Because he's, when Dr. Oh my Lord, what's the doctor's name?
Dr. Zaius.
Yeah, so when Dr. Zaius is talking to him, Charlton Heston's character, and he's just completely, he's completely silent. He just doesn't answer them. It's not that he can't, and it's the same thing with Mando. It's not that he can't answer them. He just doesn't know what to say.
Right.
So I'm like, is this a Planet of the Apes kind of reference? I don't really know.
Maybe.
Lauren points out here that when you watch Pedro act in these scenes with his helmet off, that he's exaggerating what he's doing with his face.
Oh yeah.
She points out that like his eyes are really big. Like,
yeah, I saw that too.
As an awkward person growing up, she sometimes didn't feel like she knew what she was doing with her mouth or her eyes, and thought she was being weird around people. So he's actually doing a tremendous job. Like he's overacting the scenes because he doesn't know how to react. Like he reacts in complete autonomy all the time. So it's really, really neat if you rewatch it and focus on that. It's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah.
He gives him a little a little head shake.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
I really don't know what to do, but you're here now, so I'm just gonna stay as quiet as I can, and you can just keep talking there, Bill Burr.
You're not dismissed.
Yes, you're not dismissed. Let's get drink. Valen Hess. Do you have the actor there?
I do.
You do. So Valen Hess,
played by Richard Brake.
So if you're not familiar with his work, most recently, maybe most high profile, he was the Night King in Game of Thrones.
Also awesome. Ray Donovan and Grimm.
Yes. And I have to say, like, his whole thing, like the next part that we're going to get into with his sitting at the table, like, what's the term we use in Star Wars? Scum and villainy.
Yeah.
He really, really lives up to that whole idea of like, oh, you're one of those guys who get off on it, whatever it is.
He's a believer too.
Oh my God, is he ever? He's a huge believer.
Yeah, he's a believer too.
So they sit down at the table, and he invites them to drink, and they want to celebrate because they're the only Rhydonium transport that made it through that day. So let's get a drink, a celebratory drink.
We get a quick cut to Kara and Fennec on the
That's
roof.
right.
For me, this is neat because they're scanning with their sniper rifles.
Yes.
And we get the Imperial gunners from
Yep.
the original, from the final 17 Kenner figures.
Yep.
Awesome little nod to those guys who are super obscure action figure.
I quite like the fact that they actually went out of their way to use actual gunnery, an actual gunnery troop, and not just throw a stormtrooper at it.
Yeah.
That gunnery is a specialized enough job that it's its own thing. I like that they did that.
The devil's in the details, and it's amazing. I mean,
yeah. So back inside the mess hall, it's like, what should we drink to? Hess makes, he's all about drinking to all that. There's a word he uses.
It's less. I like to use something less rote than drink to your health or drink to the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Less rote. And then he says, "Brown Eyes, where are you from?" So
right.
Going to talk to the guy's home planet or something. You certainly lead that sort of thinking.
Yeah, and then there's more of that, like the fast eye movement, like what do I do?
He begins to say this just like he did with the TK number. I'm TK, and he's about to, he's not a fast talker. He's a punch you in the mouth kind of guy, right?
Once again, steps up with, hey, let's, why don't we toast to Operation Cinder?
Oh, huge drop. So if you guys didn't play the Battlefront 2 first-person game, the story mode, Operation Cinder is exactly what the Emperor leaves behind for all his operatives when he dies. And it's the robot that comes, and it's got Palpatine's face in the message, and it tells them what, do this, go here, you do this, you do that.
I have a line,
Operation Cinder, and we're going to destroy.
I have a line on it, and you can fill in the blanks, Hank, but it kind of goes like this, like, Operation Cinder is the Emperor's final posthumous order to eliminate key Imperial personnel using weather satellites to cause electrical storms and other catastrophic weather events should he die, and it is the catalyst to rebuild the Empire in the unknown regions.
It's like an extra level of purge.
Yeah.
As they were pulling back, it's the scorched earth, if you will, or the blitzkrieg. As they're pulling back, they're destroying everything. They're destroying bases, infrastructure, their own troops. They're salting worlds, if you will.
I got the impression that, given what we know of the Emperor, that I think the thing for me was key personnel, because the Emperor, being the person that he is, and now we're talking Battlefront 2 is in the Disney era of Star Wars, so you have to tell him on some level, they're already leaning towards, the next, his next manipulation, right? So knowing that he's going to come back, it would only make sense that he would want to take out, he would have had a line on anybody that was a seditionist. And so, why wouldn't you want to take them out if your ultimate goal was, I'm coming back and I just don't need you as a thorn in my side?
Maybe leading back to your point from the last episode is that
Thrawn
is in escrow, if you will. He's out in the ether, so he's not ostensibly one of the people that gets
cindered.
But,
He doesn't get cindered.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice deep cut. And the officer Hess even says, "There's a man who knows his history." Yeah. So there's more exposition here, and Mayfeld goes like deep into like his own psyche, and like as somebody who has post-traumatic stress, like he literally just put the can opener in there and spun the wheel, like, here you go, and talks about what it was like. We lost a lot of people that day. We lost a whole division. That's like what, 5,000-10,000 people. He stops. Yeah, you destroyed a city that day.
And
I was at Burning Con.
Yep.
Burning Con, and they were all heroes of the Empire. You get all this rhetoric, but he's not talking to him like he's an officer anymore. Everything's changed.
No, yeah, like he's talking to him
back
like
in his seat. He's and here's where I have to almost take a lot of things back I've ever said about Bill Burr, because he's got some acting chops here. Because he starts to tear up. The more that this guy is being a piece of shit, the more you could see him accessing something in his real life that has really hurt him.
I have to imagine what it was like to be a soldier on the ground as these things are happening around you, and you're powerless to do anything about it.
We're certainly bringing this perspective change, completely locking it into place now.
Yeah.
That there are living, breathing, feeling, thinking, loving beings on both sides of all conflicts.
Yeah, exactly.
And that ostensibly in war there's nobody.
Yeah, the war is hell speech.
Right.
Yeah, Hesse says, like you'd said, he says that all heroes of the Empire, and it was all for the greater good. And Mayfeld's response to that is, well, it depends on who you ask.
Was it good for them?
Yeah.
The civilians, the mud scuffers that died.
So then there's a moment where it's almost like it's the flip side of the same coin, where Mayfeld had said, there are rulers and there are those who ruled. And now you flash forward to where we are now in the episode, and you've got this vile character Hess, where he's like, they say they want freedom, but what they really want is order.
And is that foreshadowing or what?
Well, to me, it's definitely. I actually said it's everybody says they want freedom, but what they really want is order. And I wrote that it's a bit of a double entendre, because people want like governance and order, but you can't tell me that that's not a foreshadowing to the First Order.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talks about the Rhydonium in terms of what they're going to do with it.
Yeah.
And he says, we're going to use the Rhydonium to wreak havoc, and it'll make Burning Con pale by comparison. And you can see the hurt.
Oh yeah.
The hurt in Mayfeld's eyes. He actually he kind of looks away and kind of looks down at his, at his chest or at his lap or whatever. And you can see the gears are turning
Yeah. He's about to go over the edge, and then Hess says, "Long live the Empire."
Oh yeah.
And Mayfield jumps.
Yeah.
Big time.
The whole scene had a really similar feel to the drinking scene in Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, good call actually.
I felt
and then even more so, Hess, his character, I felt he kind of played him kind of like David Carradine.
Oh, yeah.
In Kill Bill. That arrogance, superiority, and
I don't think that...
But more scum.
For my sensibilities, I don't think we've had a more tense scene where it's pure dialogue. I've never felt tension like that in the show yet, as I did watching that scene play out, and I was just I'm on the edge of my seat on bated breath throughout this whole thing, because it's like, oh my god, you can visually watch him getting wound up. Yeah, oh yeah. I've worked with lots of people who carry issues that are similar like that. I carry some of those myself. So again, as a metaphorical mirror, for me as a viewer, I'm on some ways looking at myself, so I really, really related to this and related to his character in this.
In classic Vietnam vernacular, he frags the officer.
Yeah, really. Draws down on him from the table. Quick draws, puts a round through his chest. Mando just looks at him like, what? And then we get this shot of the shore trooper who's carrying his tray with his drink on it.
Tray. Yeah, normalizing everything. Everything is being normalized here.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And he leans back, cross chest, puts him down, and then all chaos breaks loose. In between the two of them, they
execute
essentially,
3 officers in a row. And they're just sitting there having lunch.
Yeah, clear the room. And then there's a couple seconds where we get a moment to breathe, and Mayfeld, he sends it home in this scene where he's hands him the helmet, respectfully looks away, and he's like, listen, we did what we had to do. I never saw your face, and then averts his gaze.
Yes.
To allow him to compose himself.
Yes.
Mando, I mean. Mm-hmm. Which that solidified it for me that, as much as we've watched Mando evolve over the course of 2 seasons, we just had that level of evolution in 1 episode with this character.
Yes, no, it's very true. It's very true.
Yeah. Oh, I've even said I didn't want to like Mayfield, but this whole sequence makes him way more than the throwaway character that I thought he was back in season 1.
Certainly.
It's like every side character we meet on Mando's journey is a metaphorical mirror for Mando. They all spark some challenging ideas, and they've caused Mando to reflect on who he is. And now the mess gets rushed by troopers as there's an alarm going off, directing everybody to the mess, and they've got to blast their way out. Fortunately, the louvered windows kind of border on the waterfall.
Nice.
They boot their way out onto a small ledge and start making their way, and it's another run and gun sequence trying to get up to the rooftop. But as you say, they got some sniper support.
Hell of a sniper support. I don't think a shot missed it.
And that initial scene has a really reminiscent feel to The Fugitive with Harrison Ford.
Yeah. I love the the shore troopers. They give chase and they're right out there on the ledge with them. Which is kind of cool. Makes for a cool little action sequence where when they're getting picked off and watch them down the waterfall.
Yep.
We get a shot down Kara's scope, and there's some Arabesh there, Andy.
There is. Her scope has 3 settings: safe, semi, and stun.
Nice.
So I find that kind of funny because she's still carrying. It's the same rifle that she pulled. I guess it's not really a rifle. It's actually, isn't it a machine gun?
It is. I have it right here.
Yeah, and it's a double canister magazine. It's the same one that she was using before, where she was like unloading.
It has 2 barrels.
Yeah. Anyway, now it's also has a semi-automatic setting. That's convenient.
Bacoon.
Yeah, and it's totally different too. Like they actually make a distinction between Fennec's blaster and Kara's blaster. Like there's a tonal difference there, even though they are doing the same. Where Fennec shot that one, Kara shot that one. So yeah, we have the run and gun escape sequence with a total Vietnam dust off vibe. So as they start picking off the troopers, they make their way up to the rooftop. It's like, come on. And we see the heroic, it's literally the dust off Huey to me, like the camera angle. In comes Slave One right into it, doesn't even land, puts it into a hover, just like a dust off chopper, and they jump on board to make their escape.
The only thing missing is the yellow smoke from a cannon.
Seriously, to mark the landing zone.
Yeah, and the way they shot this too, Mando jumps and leaps and makes it, and then they sort of, it's from underneath, and I almost thought that Mayfield wasn't going to make the jump.
That's what I thought too.
You get that impression? Like
it was going to be
looks like he fell short of
to the ledge or something, or Mando would have to grab him to pull him in.
Yeah,
who knows?
He lands hard.
Well, like again, I know it's television, so I mean your budgets are smaller, and maybe there's less takes because you have a tighter shooting schedule, but maybe that is an element that they initially played with, that he wasn't going to make it initially, and that they would, role reversal, Mando would have to help him, and maybe that just got abandoned. Who knows? But as they pull away, Mayfeld beckons Mando to hand him the cycler rifle that Boba had been carrying around.
The Tusken cycler.
Yeah, and he dials in. There's a transport conveniently sticking with its bum out the hangar door, and the radonium canisters are exposed. But he takes aim and talk about skill. Mayfeld must really be a pretty good shot, because it's a moving, like Slave One is moving, and he takes that shot and nails it from what to me looks like several hundred meters, at least 2 or 3.
Oh, hell yeah. And to reinforce it, you cut to Fennec, who is known for never missing a shot. With a sniper
that's right.
rifle,
Yeah,
and says, "Hell of a shot."
Yeah. So high praise coming from her, and we get the what is traditional Star Wars fare with the chain reaction explosion, and it takes out the entire refinery.
And Mayfeld says something here, and I forgot to mention it earlier because he says it 3 times in the episode.
We all need to sleep at night.
We all need to sleep at night. He says it in a different way every time. The first way is sort of like, people got to find a way to sleep at night. And then the second way is sort of like, whatever you have to do to find a way to sleep at night. And then this one is, he's found his way to sleep at night.
Yeah, I related that back to somebody who suffers from PTSD, and they've got to, they've got to find a way to get through their day.
That's right.
So I'd forgotten that they were out there. But the 2 TIEs, the 2 TIE fighters that beat off the pirates suddenly come back, And now it's a chase sequence. So, and it's a really cool chase sequence as Boba puts it into a steep climb, and he's just giving her and tells them basically to the two ties give chase, and Boba tells Mando and Mayfield to hang on. And we get this nice call back to Attack of the Clones where he drops a seismic charge on them.
They kind of ragdoll in their seats a little too.
They do, yeah.
Maneuvers. Yeah.
Well, that, and they're in an atmosphere, so I mean, like, they've got to be feeling it.
No inertial dampers.
No, exactly, right?
Star Wars.
Love the callback to the seismic charge and the absence of sound before they unleash that wow. But to see those two TIE fighters, like, literally, it's like watching a soap bubble burst.
Oh man, I sent that. Somebody looped it on YouTube for 2 hours. I just saw. I didn't even watch it. I just saw it. Sent it to you.
Who does that?
Who does that? Who's got the time to do that?
Yeah,
Who's got the time to do a 3-hour podcast every Saturday?
Yeah. So the girls, Fennec and Kara, are watching from the ground, and they see the whole thing you get a shot from their perspective, and they kind of like have that like, oh, okay. And then we cut to the crew in a clearing coming off. Mayfeld and Mando are coming off of Slave One. Mayfeld now dressed in typical civilian garb, I guess. And
that's what he was wearing when he got on board.
Yeah. Well, it's not. No, it wasn't, because he was in his prison jumpsuit when he got on.
But when they were talking in the cargo hold.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Mando back in his Beskar armor. Oh, something I should have brought up way back at the beginning of our episode was in the previous episode at the Hill, there was a lot of talk about what happened to Mando's jetpack because he took it off.
Yes,
clearly, he picked it up.
Yes,
which I just assumed he did anyway. I can't believe that over the course of a week now, that this was a serious, argument amongst fans, whether he just left it on Tython. Like, no, you idiots. There's no way he left it there.
No. There's some silly things they talk about.
There's things that happen off camera that, there's no suspension of disbelief required. Right. We just know, like, he's not going to leave it there. That's dumb.
You have to assume that all characters urinate and defecate.
Yes.
I just don't want to see it.
Yeah, but the show, but even that, right? You don't see it, but what do you see? The Razor Crest had a toilet in plain view.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean? Like, Star Wars went out of its way to not show us that stuff. Later on in like expanded universe materials, they showed us in schematics where the refresher, the fancy Star Wars word for bathroom, where the refresher was on the Millennium Falcon, but you never saw it.
Yeah.
So to take that extra step and show you that there's a toilet, that just lends itself to that whole, like, Star Wars better than a lot of sci-fi or fantasy worlds or properties really does go out of its way to make it look lived in.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. So Mando, back in his Beskar, complete with jetpack, says to Mayfeld, he's like, thanks for your help. And he's like, yeah, well, good luck getting your kid back. And that's a big distinction that you have to sort of focus on. It's not the kid, it's your kid.
Yeah, even Cara Dune says it at the beginning of the episode. They took his kid.
Yeah. So resolve that, he's going back to prison. He stretches out his hands and is like, well, take me back. And again, here we have this moment. This is the cool little piece for Cara where she's like I said before, she even said in the last episode, you know how I feel about the Empire. And she's, on the run because for whatever reason, she just doesn't want to get picked up in season 1. But she makes an overture, and it's like, hey, it's too bad Mayfeld didn't make it out alive back there.
He says, well, what?
Yeah.
For a split second, he's like, are they going to kill me?
Yeah, exactly. And you can see him kind of wondering, is this really happening? What's going on? And then Mando he echoes it. He's like, yeah, I guess he didn't. And he's like, what? I can go? You want? Because I will. And even after he steps off and starts walking away, he's like looking over his shoulder, like, am I about to get double crossed here? Like, is this for real? Only to see Slave One lifting off as he kind of wanders off into the jungle.
Hopefully for his sake, there's still a TIE fighter kicking around somewhere over there.
Well, there's got to be something laying around. If not, he's conveniently landlocked into a place where we know we can come back and revisit him, right?
Certainly.
So, archetypical wipe transition, wipes up to Moff Gideon's light cruiser on the bridge, and we see Gideon just sort of standing about on the bridge. The door to the bridge opens up, and it's the comms officer, and she's like, "You need to see this." And it's a holo transmission, and it's this super, super cool holo of Mando.
And just before we go there, though, the comms officer for
Yeah.
the third time
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
played by Katie O'Brien.
Right. The holo goes off, and if it's not an exact parroting of the same speech that Gideon gave back in season 1.
Right down to the gate.
Yeah. But the emphasis, he really emphasizes the whole means more to me than you'll ever know. Kind of, it's almost like a one-up thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And you get this, like, it has a different weight to it. And I said, when Mando was parroting the speech back, I was trying to come up with like an analogy for it. And to me, it's like, remember Taken? Like Liam Neeson is like, I have a certain set of skills, and when I find you, I will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Liam Neeson moment, where
I will find you.
Yeah, that's right. It's the same phone call, even though, it's the speech from Gideon.
No, absolutely.
So it's literally, how far will a father go for their kid? So talking about the believer, there's a moment there where, I don't know about you guys, but you could see a shift in Gideon's expression where it's like, I don't know if there's an element of fear there, but there is definitely a reconsideration maybe of his position in terms of like, is he doing I've underestimated you? Like, something has happened for Gideon in that moment.
A little bit of pensiveness for sure.
Yeah.
A little facial shift there.
And it's fade to black after that, and the episode concludes.
Also, first episode that there has been no Grogu at all.
No Grogu. I was on one of those other guys' sites last night, and they put out an article about like that exact thing with breaks a show tradition, and I commented, I'm like, what, the show tradition where Mando gets shot every episode?
Yeah, or I think we're the first ones to point out that he hasn't said this is the way in several episodes.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's just like a perfunctory, like it's a greeting between Mandalorians. Like, does he really, back in season 1, and I'm trying to remember, does he just throw it out there to anybody? Or is it only...
Yeah, he says it to Quill. I believe he says it to...
You're right. I think even to Vanth, he even says it too.
I believe so, yeah.
So...
and the gunslinger, I think.
What's his name, that kid?
Several times, at least once, if not twice, in every single episode.
Yeah.
And quite heavily in the first several episodes. To the point where it was like the sort of the tagline for the show.
Yeah, of course it was. Of course, yeah.
So
yeah.
it's really... You heard it here first, kids.
So that's chapter 15 in a long nutshell. They can't all be action all the time there, kids. So I guess we can close it off by talking about sort of, what do we think? Where's it going? And final predictions for the Pentultimate. Anybody want to go first?
Well, we're coming to a head.
Yeah.
We're definitely coming to a head. We're going to get that. I don't think it's going to be as mental of a Mexican standoff as we were thinking. I don't think there's as many factions involved in this finale.
Yep.
Especially of the stuff that came out from Disney last night. Because a lot of the choices, especially in the Ahsoka episode and some of that stuff, make a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're going to get the grant. I think your team is assembled. I think that's what we're going to get. What we get. And we may still see a Jedi join them in the search for Grogu.
I do think we're going to get a Jedi as well.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. It's got to be a 2-hour episode. There's so much left for this I know this was a lot of thematic heavy stuff to get the character arc of Din Djarin to get to these places, but it did have a lot of filler episode qualities to me.
Yeah,
For being
it sure
so
did.
close to the end. We've spent, I think, every single episode since Frogmom going best episode ever, best episode ever, and I can't say that about this one.
To have this, I thought of it as like I call it the 3 episode ramp up, where that was just like, oh my God. And then, oh my God. And oh my God.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
way back.
Yep. It would pull way back.
Interesting choice. So maybe it means we're going to jump the shark in the next one in a good way. Hopefully
yeah,
a good
exactly.
way.
Yeah. We're going to jump the Rancor.
Yeah, there it is.
I don't really have a lot more to add on the episode other than, much like the Ice Cave episode where, we had some reservations about that one as well, but the development piece for Mando was there, and I really, really liked that. This one kind of echoes that for me, but it's the Mayfeld development that I really dug into on this. I quite like that. So absolutely an enjoyable episode. Not the lip of the ramp that I thought we were going to get to springboard into the rescue, but like you say, a bit of a throttle back to, I guess it, as a viewer, it gives us a little bit of a pause to take a breath before we go right back into it again.
Well, it's very true, and it's a big galactic perspective shift.
Yeah.
You get to think about things from many different perspectives, and it questions your belief in Empire, Republic, good, evil, what's right and wrong, war and peace. So it does a lot of that, and it certainly, by throttling back, we know that we have to put the pedal to the metal in the next episode.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm really looking forward to that.
So just to close off on for me anyway, to close off on the development piece, because that's for me what this episode was about, just to reiterate that, the believer or the belief, I think we could safely exchange belief with acceptance. And I think that's a common thread throughout the episode, that everybody's accepting now of what it is that they truly do believe. So I like that aspect. I'm excited for the next one. I do still think we're going to get a Jedi. As you say, the crew is probably who it is right now. The 1, 2, 3, 4 of them.
I think we might pick up 1 or 2, maybe a Grief Karga.
Is there an opportunity for Bo-Katan to show up and help in some way?
Possibly.
I don't know. I mean, if anything, God, who knows? Who knows? Anybody else? Any other predictions for?
Not so much a prediction. I just think this one cemented that he is now ready to go over whatever line is necessary to get the kid back.
Yeah.
To get his kid back.
Safe to say that he's no longer a child of the Watch in the strictest sense.
Yeah.
And also it sort of, you have to think it changes the way he views the attachment to the child, because before it was all about fulfilling the creed.
Yeah.
And honoring his word. And now it's no longer about that. I don't even think he would hand him over to anyone at this point.
Yeah.
So I think you might find some conflict with a Jedi who wants that.
It's entirely possible, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that about wraps it up for Chapter 15, The Believer. We've got one more week to go, gentlemen, and I don't know if you guys noticed last night. I saw it this morning. The official word on Season 3, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, December 25th, 2021.
Oof.
So we get a long haul to get to Season 3. So Season 2 Pentultimate had better deliver, because if I've got to wait a year, you got to give me something to salivate on to hang on for that long.
Well, they might just do that.
It'll be incredible. I can't wait.
All right, guys. That's it for me. Anything else you guys want to close on?
Just that we always end the episode with "This is the way," and it might not be the way anymore, fellas.
Maybe not.
No.
All right, guys. My name's Wes. This is Fandom Power presents The Fandalorian, and I'm a believer.
I'm a believer.
All right.
I'm a believer too.
Until next week, gentlemen. Bye for now.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Fandom Power. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll be talking about another one of your favorite fandoms. Fandom Power is a Sawcast production.